Hey everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Curtis. Today's episode is How Angels Talk and Listen. And in this episode, among other things, we're going to talk to you about how angels can listen to your feelings. We're going to talk about your book of life, what that is and what it means, and how in the afterlife, the thoughts of angels can turn into clouds and stuff like that. Stay tuned. We're back. How did you like that intro, rapper? I know, me too. Let's talk about how angels talk. According to Swedenborg, and you don't have to take his word for it. I find it to be the most compelling explanation of the afterlife. But it's free. It's a free world. Swedenborg, though, asserted that angels, if we're talking about angels in the afterlife, the things that people see in their visions and in their near-death experiences and all over the place, those are people. It's just all of us can become this just after we die. Just like the difference between a kid and an adult, the difference between us and them, they're just further along on the journey. The intent of God is that we would become angels. That's why the whole creation happened, according to Swedenborg. So angels are just you down the line, but way, way more loving and wise than you are now. So because of that, angels, they talk about stuff. They have lives that are an upgrade from ours, but you would recognize our life in them. They talk about what's going on in their life. They talk about what's going on in their homes and in their communities. The issues, as Swedenborg says, of moral life and spiritual life. They chat about stuff. This is how he describes it. There is no difference in how angels talk and we do, except that they talk with each other more intelligently than we do, because they talk from a deeper level of thought. I have often been allowed to be in their company and talk with them like one friend with another, or sometimes like one stranger with another. So he's got angels he's like tighter with and looser with. And since at such times I was in a state like theirs, it seemed exactly as though I were talking with people on earth. But even though there's more going on in there, because Swedenborg, this is not really what he wore, but because Swedenborg was brought into a state like theirs, the experience to him was a lot like what we experience now. If you think about it, when you're talking with other little kids and you're a little kid, it seems like kind of like everyone's a grown-up in there. I remember being in middle school and I thought, man, we're just about grown-ups. We were 12, 13, something like that. And then I saw a picture of myself and my friends, and we still look like little kids. But you have this experience of talking with your peers. When Swedenborg was in the peer state with angels, it was like, oh yeah, I recognize this, even though what they're talking about is way up there. Communication in the afterlife, this is something that you hear in people's near-death experiences. It's often telepathic. People will say, the words were just in my mind. But and Swedenborg affirms that. He says there is spoken language as well. There are multiple dimensions to how people can communicate. He wrote, angelic language, like human language, is differentiated into words. It is similarly uttered audibly and heard audibly. Angels have mouths and tongues and ears just as we do. And they also have an atmosphere in which the sound of their language is articulated. It's not just like there's physics up there. So they have the equivalent of the atmosphere we have here. There's a spiritual atmosphere. They breathe it in, they expel it to speak when they're not doing the telepathic thing. What language do they speak though? Do you speak English? Will we understand what they're saying? You definitely will. Sorry, Duolingo. There's no Duolingo. There's no need to learn the angelic language when you get in there. And the reason is because it is a direct language. So it is a language based on the thoughts themselves that people have and the feelings that those spring from. It's a language, you know it intuitively when you get there. If you think about, if you're sitting around here, maybe you're at the United Nations, you know how you do, and everybody there has got a different word for chair. And you want to say, hey, can I sit in that chair? But you have to think through what's the language they would say it in. But everybody in that room, no matter what language they speak, when they look at the chair or they think of a chair, they have the same thing in their mind. They have the same thing in their mind. The angelic language is just the direct expression of that thing, or the direct expression of like the concept of kindness. It's the same experience in human beings, regardless of your language. In heaven, you can directly articulate that concept. And that's what that language is. All people in heaven have the same language. They all understand each other no matter what community they come from, whether nearby or remote. This language is not learned, but is innate. It flows from their very affection and thought. We talked in a recent episode about how there is direct communication among everyone in each level of heaven. Talk about there's different levels of heaven, but there's not direct communication between the levels of heaven. And the statement that when I just read, that all people in heaven have the same language, might sound like, bam, you got us. We've contradicted ourselves. I would, in our defense, I would say there are different levels of the same language here. For example, if you are a highly trained neuroscientist and you want to tell somebody who is 8 years old about what you do, you really have to adapt your language. You cannot, what you'd say to your colleague, you do not say to the 8-year-old. You have to adapt it into metaphors, analogies, stories, that kind of thing. That's essentially what happens with this common language between the different levels of heaven. The conversations, the kinds of things the deeper angels are thinking about can only be conveyed to angels in the outermost levels in terms of correspondences, meaning metaphors or symbols. And literally, like the clouds that you would see in the sky in this part of heaven are an image of the things they're talking about in these parts of heaven. Isn't that cool? I find that awesome. Back to the concept of spoken language. Whenever there's a spoken language, there's some sound happening, which means you got ears, you got to take that in, so there's listening involved as well. Let's talk about how angels listen and how they listen to us. Angels are really good at listening, and they don't really listen to what you say, they listen to the feeling behind what you say. So all the speech that we have is just your thoughts getting articulated, and your thoughts come from the feelings that are behind them. If you think that my stringing a sentence together here comes from me wanting you to know something in particular, or I'm trying to affect you in some kind of way. Swedenborg wrote in Heaven and Hell 236, anyone who reflects may realize that all thought comes from affection, which is a function of love. For no thoughts or concepts whatever occur apart from affection. This is the source of their soul and life. So your thoughts have a soul. Your thoughts have a soul, and the soul is what those thoughts are trying to do. So angels, when they're listening to someone, not only do they deeply care about the person they're listening to, but they can also understand the soul of what people are saying, just by the sound of their voice. Angels know simply from speech what kind of person someone is. They know the quality of the affection from the sound and the quality of the mind from the articulations of the sound or words. So your tone of voice and how you say things, they can pick out who you are. This is something that is not foreign. You can tell when someone, how are you? Fine. You're not fine. I know that because even though you said fine, your voice didn't say fine. Your tone of voice didn't come out fine. And this is, you can tell this all across human communication. You can generally, your tone of voice reflects what you're feeling. Now you can fake that. I can say, yeah, hey, I really loved your cheesecake that you made, but I didn't really, but I'm faking that to try to do something. Or yes, of course you can trust this credit card contract that I want you to sign. There's feelings underneath that are being masked there. You can't sustain that kind of duplicity in the afterlife. You want to know why? Because of the wiser angels. Angels will see right through that. The wiser angels know from conversation the whole state of another person. I have heard angels discover a person's life simply by listening. They have told me that they know everything about another person's life from a few individual ideas, because these enable them to know the person's ruling love, which contains everything in a pattern. This is all that our book of life is. So your book of life, this is something that people, has been in multiple religious traditions. This is something people have in their spiritual experiences. What is this? The book of life. Everything about you is the book of life, because everything in you, all your motivations, your mind, your history, is actually in everything that comes out of your spirit. So because your spirit is the conscious part of you, it's the thinking, feeling part, it's the part that's actually alive, that's animating this physical thing we got going on called the body. Anything that you say or do has all of you in it. Your book of life, it's a lot like how each of your cells has the entirety of your DNA in it. So you can just, there, all of me is there somewhere, just brushed off a few cells. So angels can listen to just a word and know everything about you. You know, that's the book of life. It's just hearing how you say things and what you say. So why do they do that? Why would they want to know that? Because they love you. They love every single person. This is, as I said, once you get to that stage, really you're feeling God's love, which is a love, an entirely full love for every person. That's just what God is. That's just what God is like. So angels are driven by that same thing. So they can use this ability that they have to know people, to know how people need help. Know what kind of state you're in so that I can treat you. I need to take, it's like in the hospital, they got to do all these scans and stuff to try to figure out what you need. There, the scan is listening. That's the power of angelic listening. And this is something that people can listen to each other in the afterlife, but angels can listen to us now. So just now, by how and who you are, angels can tell not only what you're like, but what you need to get to the next step in your spiritual growth. Angels can talk as well, though. So what about that speech? How would that affect us if we could actually hear the speech of angels and listen to what it had to say? Do you know anybody that's had an angel talk to them? I'm serious. I know people who, I guess I wasn't there, but who say, I know people that I've worked with, relatives of mine, who have had experiences where they felt like, or they believed an angel was talking to them. And it's pretty widespread. Something that those usually have in common, and of course, if you just go online, everybody's got a story about it. There's so many people with stories about that, is that when angels talk, it's usually short and simple, like a couple of words, but it has a really big impact. So there's a reason that happens, according to Swedenborg. He wrote that the speech of angels, with actual words that angels say, are totally different than the words that we have, except with some of the sounds in our words correspond with angelic thoughts and feelings. So there's a little bit of connection between the two. But there's a method in which angels can use earthly language in our memory to translate their messages to us. That's how you can sometimes hear the way that angels talk. They're not speaking in their own language. They're looking in your mind for what matches with what they want to say, and then trying to, it's a whisper down the lane almost kind of thing. So what if you could just directly hear that language and hear that speech as it actually is? This is something that Swedenborg experienced. He was given the ability to have his mind opened up to the level of angels, so that he was in the same state as they were. This is how he described their language. The language of angels is so full of wisdom that they can, in a single word, express what we cannot say in 1,000 words. Thinking of someone who's like, you know what I'm trying to say isn't going on and on, and angel just says, chair, or chair is the only example I can think of for this whole episode. And they're like, yeah, that's what I was trying to say. The concepts of their thinking can encompass things the like of which we cannot grasp. let alone articulate. This is why the things that have been heard and seen in heaven are called inexpressible, such as the ear has never heard, nor eye seen. And that's out of the Bible. But it's not only the thing that makes angel communication so powerful is not just the deep wisdom, but it's the love that you can hear in their voice. That hits you hard. Swedenborg goes on, since angels' language corresponds to the affections of their love, this is directly representing their feelings, and since heaven's love is love for the Lord and love for our neighbor, we can see how elegant and delightful their conversation is. What if it was just pure love, chatting to pure love? It affects not only the ears, but also the deeper levels of the minds of those who hear it. There was one particular hard-hearted spirit with whom an angel talked, and eventually he was so moved by what the angel was saying that he burst into tears, saying that he couldn't help it. Love was talking. And he had never cried before. So if you're a tough guy, angels will get you. They'll get you. So it's really powerful and really wise, but it's also really difficult to bring back with you. One time I was in a place called Tucson where it's the desert, and there's mountains there, and at the top of the mountains, it snows. And one time it snowed, and people were driving up to the top of the mountain, piling snow into their trucks and driving back down to be like, look, there's snow here, down here in the desert. But then it would melt really quick. It's a little bit like that. At times, I have been conveyed into the state in which angels are and have talked with them in that state. At such times, I understood everything at the top of the mountain with the snow, but when I returned to my original state, and therefore into the normal thought process of physical consciousness, and wanted to recall what I had heard, I could not. There were 1,000 things that would not fit into natural ideas, and were therefore inexpressible except by subtle shifts of heavenly light, and not at all then in human words. You just can't get it to go. And this is something that near-death experiencers will constantly report. Like, I knew at the time, I understood it all, I understood the plan, and we're back here, and I don't really know what they're saying. And it's not because there's some kind of like, this is classified information. It's just that stuff does not fit into the tools we have here. We're talking about the neuroscience and the ganglia and the dendrites and all that to a 6-year-old. They cannot understand that. But you will one day. So that's how angels talk and listen. And what I would want you to take away from this is that angels listen deeply to people, because what it is to be an angel is just you're a person who has got God's love, which is like, come on, pretty cool, because it is the love of every human being and bringing goodness and happiness to them. They got it in their hearts, and that love drives you to want to help everybody and understand how to help them. So they are great at listening. They will listen to you when you enter the afterlife, but right now they're listening to the deeper thoughts and feelings in your mind. There is a link there where you can communicate. Even though we won't get sort of the direct angelic feedback a lot of the time that we would probably like, you can get little experiences and little bits of earthly interpretation, unless you happen to have some bigger opening of your spirit like Swedenborg and others have had. But anyone, you and me, can just listen to the deeper parts of ourselves. We can learn to tune into the good stuff. I'm talking about love. I know it's corny, but I'm talking about love. When you feel that, when you understand what it is, when you get, oh no, something might have gone wrong with this person I love, and you suddenly get this huge feeling of, oh, that's what I feel for them. When for a second I thought something could go wrong. Like, wow, that's the soul of the angelic life, is that love that's in there. So that's the core of the angelic language. That's the core of angelic communication. When you get moved deeply, pay attention to that. There's angels in that. That's like how they talk to us, is they try to push us toward, or like not even push, because angels aren't pushy, but like suggest, hey, you could go this way toward love. That when you take that and you act on it, that's opening up to this angelic communication. That's how we can do our part to listen to the angels as well.